Alright guys, we're back with some more Monster Energy Supercross 6. Today we have a kind of a cool video. It's got a bunch of stuff in it, but the main part about the video is the bike testing. So I wanted to test the 450 versus a 250 because in the beginning I used the 450 a decent amount, right? The 450 was the main bike. I think most players strive to get to the 450 in these video games because usually they're the best bike. Most power, just players want the 450, usually. Not everybody, but usually we do. But then I used the 250 for the 250 East Career a decent amount, and when I was using that bike during the career, I was running very similar lap times to what I was doing on the 450. So I was thinking to myself, wow, this bike is actually pretty similar to the 450, so maybe we should check it out. Now, I do have a few different tests that I run, or a couple. I have the Supercross track test, and you'll see that coming up here in just a little bit. But then I also run the straight line speed test, like we usually do for the bike showcase, where we test all the 450s or 250s or whatever. We do that same test. So, excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, it's always kind of tough to test these bikes in the game to get really good readable data to show you, but I think we did a pretty good job. So the track that I chose to test the bikes at was Daytona. Now, you might ask, why Daytona? Daytona has some straightaways, it has a bunch of inside lines that you can take, and maybe that favors the 450. It probably does a tiny bit, but this track is a track that I can run virtually the same lap over and over and over again. I have a decent amount of time on this track. I enjoy this track. And again, it's a track that I can replicate the same lap over and over and over again. So what I did was, here we start with the 450, was I ran probably 10 to 12 laps with each bike, and then I took the 3 best laps that we did. Now, we could have done averages, we could have done that, but I didn't feel like doing it that way. Now, again, we start with the 450, and this first lap is okay. They progressively get a bit faster. I was a little bit surprised. I mean, I was really surprised with the results, but the 450, I wasn't surprised. I ran what I thought I could do. I've done these lap times before, and it just felt like what I thought it would be. So we run... what is it, a 109.510. So, okay, it was an okay lap time, not great. I'm not saying I'm great at the game. These laps weren't supposed to be the fastest in the world. I mean, I was trying to run fast, but again, most of it was about just trying to run consistent, but yet still kind of quick, you know? And they came out pretty good. They came out pretty close, but again, they get faster as we go along. And both bikes are set up the same. We use the YZ450, YZ250 4-strokes, and I used the exact same parts for both bikes when I was upgrading them. Both bikes are fully upgraded, and then the bike setup is the exact same for both the bikes. So just the default setup. The only difference is that I use the manual transmission, and I don't really think that came into play because I shift the bikes pretty much the same. The 450, maybe I run that bike in a corner in third gear, where as the 250 I would be in second, maybe, but for the most part it was pretty similar. But like I was saying, well, we have a 108.993, pretty decent, but this lap is a bit better. Now, what I was trying to say earlier is that, yeah, I know Daytona has a bunch of straightaways and the inside berms you can take, and maybe that hindered the 250 a tiny bit, but you'd be surprised. You would be a bit surprised. And also, looking back on it, probably should have ran the bike stock instead of upgrading them, but in my mind I felt like upgrading them wasn't gonna hurt anything, especially if I used the exact same parts which affect the bike the exact same way in the video game. So I didn't really have a problem with it, but yeah, I mean, we could have ran at a different track. I was going to do Indy, I was going to do Detroit. Those are 2 other tracks, Glendale, that I feel like I'm pretty consistent at. What I really didn't want to do, and I know Daytona has a bridge, But the way you hit this bridge, you hit it straight on, so it isn't as bad. But what I really didn't want to have happen was run it on a track such as Arlington, where the bridge is really bad. The physics get really weird, and the bike just swaps all over the place. But we ran a 108.961. Remember that time. 108.961. Here we switch over to the 250. I forgot to turn the ghost off. I mean, I like ghost racing, but for this, I didn't really want to have it. But forgot to turn it off, and this lap turned out to be pretty decent. So I kept it on and whatever. But yeah, it was shocking. It was actually shocking. It was kind of what I was expecting. I would say where the 250 gets hurt the most is off of that big 5 out of the sand. You can hit it just fine. I mean, we hit it pretty good there, but the 250 can case that easier. And then hitting that triple we just hit, sometimes if you try to hit that in third or whatever, you can clip your back wheel and whatever. And then trying to hit this inside berm with the 250, you don't have quite the grunt, the torque that you have on the 450. So yeah, this track, probably there was better tracks to do it at, the test, but again, it was about Daytona, a track that I can do the same lap over and over and over again. But we have a 109.4, I don't know what it was, it cut away too fast, but 109.4 something, 5.8 maybe. So our first lap on the 250 is very comparable to the 450. Actually, it's a bit faster, right? We did a 109.5 on the 450 and then a 109.4 on the 250. So the lap times are very, very similar. Now, just as it was with the 450, the lap times get a bit quicker. And I don't know if I'm pretty sure I said it, but on the 450, I wasn't surprised. I mean, the lap times I turned were very similar to what I've done in the past on the 450, but the 250 is where I was surprised. I was a little bit, I mean, I've turned on 109 before, but it was a really high 109. Consistently, I'm around 110 if I'm racing, but we dropped this thing down into the 108s, and I was shocked, okay? I know world record times are way faster, but for myself, being an average player, 109.064, so almost a 108, but this lap is insane, okay? This is my best lap ever at Daytona on the 250, so it wouldn't have mattered if we would have got this time, because I think that the results would speak for themselves, that it's kind of what I was thinking, that the 250 is very similar to the 450, because even running a 109.064, that, you know, that time is still very similar to the 108.961. I mean, it's very similar. It's a bit off, but I mean, we're talking tiny amounts, right? So really good. But here we drop it into the 108s, and I ran a couple 108s, but I just decided to show you this one because this was the best one. And again, I've been saying it, but it was shocking. I mean, we dropped this stuff into the 108.963, I believe. You'll see it here in a second, but that's virtually the exact same time I got on the 450. Now, yeah, on the 450, I probably could drop it. Here we have the straight line speed test, but I probably could drop it into the 107s if I really tried. But we have a 4.731 on the 450 and a 4.861 on the 250. So very similar. I ran it from start to the speed of 79, and the reason I did 79 is because the 450 tops out at 79, the 250 tops out at 83. So the 250 is geared a bit different, has a higher top speed, but the straight line speed test was very similar. 450 overall, I would say the conclusion I found was that the 450 is a tiny bit faster, but barely, okay, barely. Now, maybe for really good players it's way different, but for me, trying to do, you know, run the best I could, they're very much the same. And it felt like that when I was doing the 250 East career. So that's the reason I did this test. So let me know in the comments how you guys feel about this. Did you know it already? Did you kind of expect it? Were you completely shocked? I'm surprised, but it was kind of cool that this year the bikes are closer. I mean, I'm not surprised. In real life, I mean, the 250 guys are pretty similar in time. I mean, a bit off, but pretty similar in time to the 450. So it makes sense, and I feel like they were able to build the tracks better, knowing that both the bikes are very similar. You know, the 450 isn't gonna be way over jumping, and the 250 isn't going to be way under jumping everything, you know? So, excuse me. Yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think, but you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel lately. It really does mean a lot, and until the next video, take it easy.